A new day is here. During the long night, the traitors had to pick one of 7 vulnerable players to murder. Since Theo is in the 7, that left only 6 options. What they also did not know for sure was who had gotten the shield through the Faithful Crown ceremony vote, but the traitors clocked it could be in Mari's hands. With them deciding on a murder victim, everyone is about to show up to breakfast and find out who that person is. Inside the breakfast room, Krista walks in first, seeing that she's the only one in the room. She happily sits down and says out loud that she's really nervous being the first one in here. In her confessional, Krista talks about how she feels like her and her fellow traitors made a great first murder decision. Today is going to really test the team though. She's going to observe which traitor might be the weakest link so she can work with the other 2 stronger ones closer. It's a social game after all, and that involves building connections with both the faithful and the traitors. Back in the room, Clara is the next person to enter and she says good morning to Krista. Krista asks her if she has any guesses for this first murder, and Clara says she thinks either Gabby, Mari, or Theo might have died because they seem like the most popular within the 7 vulnerable players. Krista says she thought Theo could have been murdered because he has such a sympathetic backstory, which means people might not want to vote him out for a while. Fee is then the next person to enter the room, followed by Russell and Holly. They sit together and Russell points out that they have a huge advantage right now being the first few to enter. They can watch the facial expressions from the rest and observe their body language. In confessional, Holly talks about Russell positively, stating that he's giving really good faithful energy in her eyes. She really trusts him and it helps that the 2 of them are becoming friends slowly but surely. Franco is the next to enter the breakfast room, followed by Gianna, who claims she was so scared of potentially being murdered when she woke up this morning, but then remembered she was immune. In confessional, Gianna says that she wants to come off very bubbly and clumsy to the others. Having such a great personality can get her far because people might see her as genuine and will struggle to see her as a mastermind. Back in the room, Liam is the next to enter, followed by Neymar, Sebastian, and Devin. As everyone eats their breakfast, Peggy is the next to storm into the room, shifting the positive energy into negativity. In confessional, Neymar's eyes widen when talking about Peggy, claiming that the woman is very intense when she walks into rooms. However, she's pretty certain Peggy isn't a traitor because she would at least try to act faithful if she were to be one. Her personality doesn't seem fake enough to be a traitor. In the room, Sebastian asks Peggy what her guess is for this murder, and Peggy straight up says she hopes Mari gets murdered because she's on her suspect list. In confessional, Peggy mentions how defensive Mari has been the last 24 hours, meaning she has to be a traitor. She will do anything she can to push for her name at the first banishment, and if she's correct, everyone will trust her moving forward. Back in the room, Janine enters and Peggy tells her best friend to sit next to her since she's the only person she can stand at this point. Devin and Sebastian look at each other and smirk in reaction to Peggy's comment. Minnie-Marie enters the room next, followed by Morel, Winston, and then Brandon as the last safe players from the murder last night. Brandon asks the group if that's all 17 safe players, and they all nod. In confessional, Brandon says that he really needs to sell his reactions to each person's entry and act as faithful as possible. Right now, he's in a strong team of 4 with Krista, Gianna, and Theo, and he doesn't want to let any of them down. Back in the room, everyone hears footsteps at the door and watches Colleen enters. They cheer for her survival and she thanks them all for such a special welcome. In confessional, Colleen says she predicted her survival last night because the traitors will underestimate her empathic abilities. That's fine with her because the goal is not to die in this game, so she'll drop subtle hints throughout the game to help the faithful find the traitors. Back in the room, Parker enters next and everyone cheers for his survival. Soon after, Archer enters next, and everyone is glad except Colleen, who whispers to Brandon that she still thinks Archer is a traitor. Archer sits down at the table, asking the group who remains. Neymar responds and says Mari, Theo, Gabby, and Dasmian all remain, so one of them probably got murdered. Clara mentions to everyone that she actually predicted either Mari, Gabby, or Theo as the murdered ones, so she hopes the traitors picked someone with the shield since they were probably the most voted yesterday for the shield. Footsteps are then heard at the door and they all watch Theo walk in, many people relieved for him. In confessional, Theo is amazed at how much people love him right now. He doesn't want to get too comfortable and cocky though, so he has to continue feeling nervous each and every day so he can blend in. However, he can't not mention the fact right now that he's probably in the best position of all the traitors. There's a serious chance he can make it far, but he'll take things slowly, one step at a time. Back in the room, Franco says he hopes it's not Gabby who was murdered because she's such a sweet soul. Peggy straight up says she hopes Mari somehow got murdered, so that's one suspect off her list. In confessional, Morel calls Peggy a savage player, but she doesn't like that at all and would love to see her go home. Back in the room, everyone watches as Gabby enters next, and they all yell out that it's between Mari and Dasmian. In confessional, Gabby is relieved she survived the night. She didn't have the shield, so she had a huge chance of getting chosen for murder. She's just happy to see everyone's faces though, because she truly adores a lot of the people here. In the room, Peggy keeps repeating that this kill has to be Dasmian because if her suspicions are right, Mari is the traitor. But she also hopes Mari is the one murdered to prove she's wrong right off the bat, and therefore she can look at new suspects. Morel tells Peggy she's doing too much, telling her to chill out, but that enrages Janine, telling Morel to shut up and mind her own business. Everyone is stunned at the sudden arguing, and in confessional, Janine says she really thinks Morel is a traitor, so the fact that she has the balls to speak against Peggy is mind-blowing to her. She wants to make her crack under pressure, so she stops this cold persona and show her true colors as a traitor. In the room, Janine and Morel go back and forth, claiming that they are traitors to each other. Morel says she actually thinks she's more of a traitor than Peggy now because she can't keep her mouth shut and always wants to control situations. In confessional, Minnie Marie calls Janine and Morel messy as hell. It could be one of them, but her eyes are more focused on Peggy as the traitor. She just has this gut feeling that she's being really sneaky around everyone and trying to deflect any suspicions towards her. In the room, everyone then hears footsteps approaching the door, and they watch Mari enter the room last, confirming Dasmian was the one murdered. They are all shocked, and Mari sits down, realizing she's the last one to enter. Peggy shakes her head and says she knew it wouldn't be Mari murdered. Mari then publicly tells everyone she had the shield, so she was kind of hoping the traitors would pick her. Gabby tells her they are all still glad she made it in here, though Peggy states out loud that this excludes her. Mari squints at Peggy, asking her what her problem is with her, and Peggy says she's 1000% the traitor. She's acting the most fake in front of everyone. Mari scoffs and tells Peggy that she's the real traitor trying to throw shade towards her randomly. In confessional, Mari mocks how Peggy keeps saying her name non-stop. Mari is now part of her vocabulary every third sentence. Back in the room, Franco tells the group to stop fighting because they need to respect Dasmian since they just lost him. A flashback occurs with Dasmian entering the confessional room and finding out he was murdered. He sighs and says there wasn't much he could do to live. His suspicions were Theo and Neymar, so he hopes the faithful try voting at least one of them out. With Dasmian being the first murder victim, we're down to 23 players. They are now roaming the castle to chat with one another. In the hallway, Neymar, Devin and Winston walk and talk, discussing this morning's breakfast events. Neymar thinks Peggy and Janine were really disrespectful, but it doesn't necessarily make them traitors. Devin says she's right. The quiet people are more likely to be traitors at the moment. Neymar asks Winston what his thoughts are right now, and Winston says he doesn't have a full suspicion yet. He's still observing everyone to see whose attitude is changing and who seems the most genuine. Neymar says that Theo is the most genuine, but they also need to consider Peggy and Janine as the most genuine in terms of their emotions. Winston likes Neymar's thinking, and in his confessional, he thinks Neymar is a really smart player. She could be a traitor trying to come off really faithful right now, but at least she's providing really useful insights that could help the faithful win. In the breakfast room, Brandon, Krista, Gabby, Clara, and Theo talk about last night's murder. Gabby feels like the traitors went for the easiest target, someone who was quiet around the castle who also wasn't winning the shield. Krista agrees and says many people admitted to voting her and Mari for the shield for the most part, but Theo was also a likely candidate. Theo says he was certain he was getting murdered because of his backstory, but he's glad the traitors aren't that cold-blooded. In confessional, Brandon compliments Theo's traitor gameplay right now. He's really milking his backstory, which is working out for him and the traitors. So far, nobody seems to be suspicious of any of the 4 traitors, which is great for them. In fact, the only person who said a traitor's name was murdered last night. In the library, Minnie Marie, Winston, Russell, Devin, and Archer talk as Minnie Marie tells them important information that she has for the faithful to use. She brings up a conversation yesterday within a group of people on the terrace, and she specifically recalls Dasmian throwing Theo and Neymar as suspects. He thought Theo's backstory was perfect for the traitor role, and that Neymar was really quiet. Devin defends Neymar though, stating that she's not that quiet. It's just there are so many louder personalities constantly yapping in group settings, no shade to Peggy, Janine, and Mari. Archer says that this point might be important though. If one of those 2 really are a traitor, that means someone on that upper terrace was also a traitor who warned the fellow traitors about Dasmian, resulting in his death. In confessional though, Russell isn't too sure if he likes Archer's theory, mainly because Archer is a possible traitor suspect at the moment. He looks like the stereotypical game bot who would fit perfectly in the traitor position. Perhaps it's true that Dasmian was killed for mentioning a traitor, but the odds are really low in his eyes. Back in the room, Minnie Marie thinks it's wise to potentially vote one of Theo or Neymar first to test the theory. Therefore, if one is a faithful, the theory might just be bogus. Devin doesn't like this idea though, claiming that those 2 seem the most genuine in the castle. He doubts either of them are a traitor. In confessional, Devin says that Minnie Marie and Archer need to back off Neymar. She's most definitely a faithful and of course, an ally of his. If those 2 continue pushing Neymar, he might have to put suspicion on those 2 just to save Neymar, who is more trustworthy. By the stairs, Clara and Neymar chat as Neymar tells Clara that she doesn't think Peggy or Janine are traitors. She doesn't want every faithful to stick to voting them out just because they are huge personalities. They are acting the most genuine in their emotions. Clara agrees and says this logic makes a lot of sense. In confessional, Clara thinks Neymar made a really good point. If it's not Peggy or Janine, maybe it truly is Mari or Morel, the 2 people getting heat from them. Plus, the arguments make Mari and Morel seem less honest in their reactions. Back to the conversation, Neymar asks Clara if she wants to share any of her thoughts right now, and Clara says Morel really comes off like a traitor to her. She didn't believe it at first, but the more she's observing her body language, the more reserved she seems, as if she's hiding something. Neymar says this is a great first step for them. If they want, they can push for Morel to go at the banishment tonight. If they are wrong, at least they have more attempts. In confessional, Neymar is really happy with herself right now. She feels like people around her understand her thought process. Morel would be a great first banishment because she does give traitor energy. Plus, if she's wrong, the traitors won't murder her for seeming like a dumb faithful. Back in the library, Winston and Archer remain from the previous discussion of Theo and Neymar being possible traitors, and Winston tells Archer he doesn't know if either of them are traitors. He feels more faithful energy from them, but Archer says there's really nothing to go off of right now. All they can do is take big leaps of faith, and right now, all they have is Dasmian mentioning their names. Parker joins the guys, asking them what's up. Archer fills him in on the theory that it could be Theo or Neymar based on what Dasmian said about them yesterday during a conversation. If one of them really are a traitor, that means someone at the upper terrace conversation is also traitor. That would mean Brandon, Fee, Minnie Marie, Colleen, Russell, or Janine would be the other traitor who warned the traitors about Dasmian catching on. It's a wild theory, but it's all they have. In confessional, Parker really likes Archer's way of thinking. It seems plausible that it's Neymar or Theo, but he's leaning more towards Neymar because she's acting way more strange than Theo. Theo seems really genuine in their conversations, making them more faithful right now. Back in the room, Peggy joins the guys, telling them she's hot like a sizzling pan. She hates how there's no air conditioning inside. Archer then gladly fills Peggy in on this Theo and Neymar theory, hoping that would get Peggy on board, and Peggy actually agrees with this theory. She actually thinks Neymar would be the more likely traitor because she's going from room to room socializing with people. In confessional, Peggy says that Neymar is a really sweet lady, which makes her perfect as a traitor. Though, maybe it's Theo and he's playing everyone really well, but the odds at this moment are not that high. Back in the room, Peggy says she still thinks Mari is a traitor and she would rather vote for her first. If wrong, she'll gladly get on board for voting Neymar or Theo out next. Winston is leaning more towards voting Mari, claiming that he just doesn't think Neymar and Theo are traitors. In confessional, Winston really trusts Neymar, so hearing that her name is being thrown out there sucks. He's doing his best to protect the fellow faithful because he feels like she's one of the few people he can trust. Back in the room, Peggy says she feels like tonight is the night they vote Mari, so Archer should abandon this theory until next round. Archer isn't satisfied but doesn't go against this plan to get Mari out anyway. It's now a bit into the afternoon, and it's time for the faithful crown ceremony. Everyone sits outside, finding out that anyone can nominate themselves for the shield this round. They will each make a decision in secret if they will or not, and then it'll be publicly revealed to everyone afterwards. However, there's a consequence for nominating yourself. Everyone choosing to nominate themselves for the shield will not be allowed to vote at the banishment tonight. That means anyone who doesn't nominate themselves will have a vote for this shield and will also vote at the banishment. Everyone will be vulnerable at tonight's murder. And as a reminder, if the shield vote is tied, nobody receives a shield, and nobody will know of that result. Before the decision-making begins, Minnie Marie speaks up, telling everyone that it might be wise for everyone to volunteer for the shield, and anyone who feels like they would like to be in a position of voting power should opt out. That leaves less votes at the banishment, which means a smaller mess. Janine says this idea is awesome because most people want a shield anyway. In confessional, Archer calls this idea dumb though, claiming that nobody will opt out of this now because it'll leave them vulnerable at the murder even more, since the traitors will know they certainly do not have a shield. Back outside, everyone is told that they will need to stand up in 5 seconds if they would like to nominate themselves for the shield. In confessional, Mari says she really wants to opt out of this shield vote so she has more voting power. She's one of the few in danger at banishment anyway because of Peggy being a weirdo. However, she also sees how bad it could be going into the next murder because that means she definitely doesn't have a shield. With 5 seconds running out, literally everyone stands up to nominate themselves for the shield, but Theo is the only one who remains seated, and he's in utter shock. In confessional, Theo is flabbergasted that quite literally everyone except him decided to stand up. He thought more people would stay seated, meaning he could still blend in and have a vote at the same time. But now, he's the only one with a vote, which makes this situation really bad for him. With everyone standing, they find out that Theo will be the only person who will decide who gets the shield, and only him and the shield holder will know who has it, unless that information is leaked to other people. Theo breathes out, telling everyone he's really sorry that he stayed seated. He thought more people would stay seated and he didn't want to be selfish and go for the shield. In confessional, Minnie Marie finds this result worst-case scenario. Theo could be a traitor, and he's probably just going to vote out a big personality at the banishment, which basically won't mean much for the faithful. Back outside, Theo has already made his decision as for who gets the shield, and nobody has a clue except the person he chose. In confessional, Gabby cheers as she finds out she won the shield. She's so thankful right now that she's safe at tonight's murder. This makes her think she can trust Theo moving forward as a fellow faithful since he chose her for the shield, someone who was probably a big target for the traitors. She hopes this shield is kept a secret between them. In confessional, Theo talks about wanting to build trust with Gabby because she seems to have a lot of influence in the game without realizing it. People find her really trustworthy, which means she can have a lot of sway at future banishments. He hopes this tactic works out for the traitors so they can get every single faithful out of this game before the finals. Back inside, Winston, Brandon, and Liam chat, and Winston finds it very convenient that Theo was the only one not to nominate himself. He was a suspect for being a traitor today after Dasmian's death. Brandon and Liam never heard of this information, and Winston fills them in that essentially, Dasmian died after stating in a group conversation that Theo or Neymar could be traitors. At first, he thought this theory was false, but now that Theo remained in his seat, he really could be a traitor. In confessional, Brandon is worried about this first crack in the traitors group. Theo did make a really dumb decision staying seated. He had no reason not to volunteer for the shield considering how loved he is in here. Liam tells Winston and Brandon that this banishment now lies in Theo's hands, and he has no clue what will happen. Brandon shrugs and says that perhaps he could prove himself as a faithful if he votes Neymar at the banishment. Therefore, he would confirm whether this theory is true or not. In one of the hangout spaces, Krista, Gabby, and Franco talk about the situation with Theo. Of course, it'll be a hot topic for everyone, but Gabby doesn't think it makes him a traitor automatically. He is a very selfless person after all, so maybe he didn't want to take the shield from anyone else. Krista of course agrees and says she just hopes Theo banishes a common target amongst the faithful. Otherwise, he will need to be banished tomorrow if he votes someone he personally wants out. In confessional, Gabby says she really wants to defend Theo as much as possible because him choosing her makes her think he's really a faithful. Based on Krista's point, he needs to banish a common faithful target, so hopefully it'll be one of Peggy, Janine, Mari, or Morel. Back in the room, Franco tells the two ladies he really likes them in the castle and hopes they stick around because he really enjoys their company, and both Gabby and Krista love him back. In confessional, Krista sighs as she's very concerned about Theo's position. People will see him as an easy target at tomorrow's banishment. So for tonight, he needs to play this right and vote a common faithful target to come off faithful. Thankfully, none of the actual traitors are on anyone's radar except for Theo, but he can't vote himself anyway. Krista later leaves the conversation, so Gabby and Franco continue to chat. Gabby firstly tells Franco that she really trusts him and Krista, but of course he will come first. Franco says the same and says she's safe with him. Gabby then spills the beans that Theo picked her to get the shield, and she's only telling him this information because she fully trusts him. Franco smiles in reaction and congratulates her for surviving another round. Gabby then says that she really wants to protect Theo if he genuinely trusts her, so she's going to make sure people start trusting him again. Franco tells her not to stick her neck out too much because if she does, people might turn on her. But Gabby says he shouldn't worry about it because she trusts her own social skills. Neymar then enters the room and they all say hi to each other. Neymar asks them if they heard anything about Theo's vote tonight, but Gabby and Franco shake their heads. Gabby says that Theo is very open-minded, so he will listen to everyone's arguments tonight as to who they think the traitors are, and then he'll vote accordingly. Neymar thinks Morel might be a traitor, so that's someone she's going to push for. Franco name drops Parker because he's not giving much to the faithful team. Gabby also thinks Parker is a bit suspicious with the way he's acting around people. He never seems to talk about himself and constantly agrees with other people's ideas. In confessional, Gabby says that the smart move tonight is to be vocal with accusations to help Theo make the right banishment decision. He can't make his own decision without a backing due to the already big target on his back. Ideally, Parker will be banished tonight. If not, hopefully there's another target in mind that people are backing at the moment. Outside, Franco finds Gianna and spreads the word to her that Parker is a possible traitor due to how odd he acts in front of other people. Gianna finds this interesting, claiming that this is a new name she has heard. Most of the other names she heard the last 2 days were Peggy, Janine, Morel, and Mari. She's also starting to hear Neymar's name come up due to how social she is around the castle. It's almost as if she's trying too hard. In confessional, Gianna says she loves to see people accuse other faithful. It's so easy to make them seem intelligent with their theories when in reality, they are dead wrong. Franco is super gullible from what it seems, so she'll have to use that to her own advantage moving forward. This goes for any gullible faithful. Franco tells Gianna that he's definitely going to bring up points about Parker to see how he defends himself. If he's convincing enough, maybe the Neymar theory isn't as bad. But at the same time, it would be nice to see one of Peggy or Janine go because they are doing way too much in here. They are practically a disturbance to everyone. Gianna knows and says she personally wouldn't mind either of them going either, but it'll be Theo's decision at the end of the day, so they will have to wait and see what he chooses to do. It's the second night, and it's the first banishment of this game. With 4 traitors up against 19 faithful, how well will they blend in? Theo is the sole vote tonight, meaning people will need to make arguments to sway his vote in their favor. Everyone is now settled into their seats at the banishment, and Theo says he wouldn't mind starting off this discussion. Since he's the only vote tonight, he really wants to make this vote count. He doesn't want to decide based on his own reasoning and would like to instead hear other people's thoughts. Peggy raises her hand, wanting to begin, and Theo gives her the floor. Peggy straight up says that she's a woman that doesn't beat around the bush, so her main suspect is Mari and it will always stay at that. Mari immediately rolls her eyes and grunts, telling Peggy to shut up already. She's sick and tired hearing her own name come out of her mouth every 20 minutes. Peggy says that she's sick and tired of her acting like a traitor every second. Minnie Marie breaks up this argument right away, informing everyone that it would be nice to bring up new information at this banishment because they don't have too much time. They can't keep bringing up old news. Archer then says that many people already know about this big theory regarding 2 people possibly being traitors. Basically, there was a terrace conversation between a group of people, including Dasmian, Brandon, Fee, Minnie Marie, Colleen, Russell, and Janine. Dasmian said he thought Neymar and Theo were possible traitors, and then he died the next night. Therefore, the theory is that one or both of Neymar and Theo are traitors, along with one other person from the terrace group acting as the messenger. Janine rolls her eyes and calls this theory a stretch. But Minnie Marie backs this theory up, saying that it's the only proper evidence they have right now. Russell then apologizes and says he doesn't trust this theory mainly because Archer is super pro of it, and he's been on his suspect list for the last 2 days now. Archer questions Russell about it, and Russell says that he fits the traitor role, being this game bot who loves to lie and deceive. But Archer says the reasoning is really weak in actuality. There's no way he's being accused right now for fitting a certain archetype just because he's a massive gamer in the real world. Krista speaks up and says she would rather not base this on archetypes, but instead the actions people take. There is one person in this room that might just be the best vote for the faithful, because this person is both extremely social around the castle and is part of this major theory going around. Unfortunately, she thinks Neymar might be their best move right now. Neymar, who is stunned from hearing her own name, asks her what she means by her first reasoning, and Krista says that normally, those who are extremely social, almost too social, are trying to control situations and make sure their own name are not in people's mouths, and that's essentially what she has been doing. Neymar defends herself by saying that she is a social butterfly in the real world. She loves interacting with people and hearing them out. It doesn't make her a traitor just because she's that type of personality. Devin jumps in, saying that this Neymar plan isn't smart for the faithful. She has provided her own useful insights, and that's why Morel should be the vote. Morel has acted dull around here and never gives anything useful to the team. Morel scoffs, saying that almost 70% of the people here haven't given anything. In fact, she herself has given a name, and that's Janine's. Before Janine pops off, Franco interrupts, stating that they don't have much time left and he still has a name he wants to bring up. He then says that Parker is someone he just can't fully understand. He's never bringing new information to the group and seems as if he's trying to avoid sharing any personal information, almost like he doesn't want to slip up about his story. Parker squints in response, confused by this accusation. He says that it doesn't make any sense because there's nothing for him to hide. He's just a regular dude in the real world. So Franco then asks him to share something personal right now to get it out of the way, and Parker says he's a construction worker. He's boring. That's why he never shared anything about himself. He's just a simple man living out his life. Franco doesn't say anything in response, and Gabby tells Theo that his best move tonight is to put down a name that first makes sense in his own mind, and then also thinking about the arguments brought up tonight so there's some sort of backing in that decision. Theo breathes out and apologizes in advance if he gets this vote wrong. The discussion time has now ended, meaning Theo will need to write down the name of the player he is banishing from the castle. Theo then finishes writing a name down, and everyone stares at him, waiting for the reveal. Theo is then asked to reveal the name he wrote down, and he breathes out heavily, stating that this was not an easy decision. However, after listening to all the claims from various people, there is one person he thinks will hopefully provide more information to the group once they reveal their actual role. This person seems really good at this game, and it scares him if they really are a traitor. For those reasons, he decided to vote Neymar out of this game. Neymar slowly nods her head, sighing after seeing her name on his slate. Devin is really upset by this result and Winston shakes his head, feeling like this decision was the wrong one. Neymar then gets up and heads to the front, while Minnie Marie prays that the theory was right. Neymar stands at the head of the room and looks at everyone else for a moment. She then says that certain people will always have certain advantages over others in this game. There are various factors, such as personality types and the actual roles being played. She feels like a lot of the push tonight has come from the traitors themselves, or at least one of them. She says that this experience meant a lot to her, especially being disabled and still having the ability to compete on a reality show. Despite that, her journey is cut short, and Neymar reveals she was a faithful. Everyone is distraught, disgusted, and upset over this result, and Devin avoids looking at anyone because of how pissed he is. Neymar leaves the room where it's now dead silent. Theo apologizes to the group and Clara tells him not to put this on himself. It was a majority decision. In confessional, Theo says that he needed to vote Neymar out to cancel Archer and Minnie Marie's whole theory. Now that Neymar was revealed to be faithful, they can pin the blame on either them or possibly even someone else. In confessional, Sebastian says that Neymar didn't deserve to go home. She was really sweet in here and became really good friends with him. She'll be missed. Back in the castle, everyone is allowed to roam around again now that Neymar was the latest person banished. Minnie Marie, Archer, and Parker talk in the bar, really disappointed that Neymar was in fact a faithful. Minnie Marie says she obviously feels guilty now, being one of the main people pushing for this vote. In confessional, Archer says he's basically screwed going forward because he decided to put his neck out there tonight to get Neymar voted out. He actually didn't think Theo would go through with it. Maybe he's a traitor who already knew she was faithful, but it's hard to know for sure. Anyone can be a traitor. Parker tells the two that he's annoyed Franco would even bring up his name just for keeping his personal life hidden. Archer calls it a low blow from Franco. It's also mind-blowing that someone would accuse based on archetypes, and that's essentially what Russell did. In confessional, Archer admits he finds Russell a bit irritating because he seems like he's playing this game all wrong. He's basing his thoughts on friendship and personality, and just because they don't click, he wants him voted out. In another room, Janine and Morel chat as Janine tells Morel that she really just wants to end whatever beef they have and move forward as new people. Morel says she never had a problem with her, and it was her who had a problem in the first place. Janine apologizes and says she just feels like they will annoy the group even more by constantly going at each other. In confessional, Janine admits she needs to start off fresh again. She went in too hard, going after Morel for little evidence she had. After seeing how wrong people were with Neymar, it's starting to scare her for her future. If she ever gets Morel voted off and she's a faithful, people will then target her for being wrong. She needs to think logically, so repairing her relationship with Morel might be a first step in the right direction. Morel tells Janine that she is willing to hit the reset button, and Janine says she's glad. They don't necessarily have to fully trust each other, but they at least don't need to bring up each other's names again and again like they have been for a bit of time. With nighttime now here, the castle is ready for bed. Everyone says their goodbyes to each other before heading to bed, not knowing if they will see one another again. Someone will be murdered, and none of the faithful will know until tomorrow. In the Traitors' turret, the 4 cloaked traitors enter the room and stand at their designated spots. They then remove their hoodies and smile at each other. Theo admits he was so nervous going into the round table, but hopefully people aren't as suspicious of him after seeing Neymar was actually innocent. Gianna tells Theo that he made a really big risk with that faithful crown ceremony, and Theo says he actually thought more people would volunteer than not. He wanted to blend in and continue his selfless strategy. Brandon says it's all fine now because people are going to look at the wrong people now. Krista then asks the other 3 what their thoughts are for this murder. Theo says that Gabby is off the table because he gave her the shield, hopefully building up trust with her. Gianna tells him that's really good because Gabby is easily swayed. She also has Franco in her pocket, and he's a very gullible person. Brandon then asks the group what they think if they murdered another quiet personality, similarly to Dasmian. Krista says that the strategy didn't really pay off last time because it almost got Theo banished and Brandon in trouble since he was part of that terrorist chat, and he was indeed the reason they killed Dasmian to begin with. Theo agrees with Krista, stating that they need to change their type of target. They might need to go for a louder person, someone who is more vocal around the castle. Gianna says that they could consider killing Minnie Marie because she was one of the more vocal people in the room and was wrong. Therefore, any other names she had in mind can't be used against anyone if she's dead. Brandon says he's more thinking about how they could manipulate emotions in this murder. He thinks murdering Janine or Peggy could really switch things up because then people would have to think about who would want them dead just based on pure annoyance. Krista smiles and says it would do everyone a favor anyway since they truly are the most annoying in here. Theo then names one last person, saying that it could be wise to kill Russell because he accused Archer. If Russell is found dead, people might think Archer is the traitor. Not only that, but Russell is a social threat. All 4 traitors take time to think about their decision, and they end up agreeing on one name. They throw a scroll with the victim's name on it in the pit ahead and wish each other luck tomorrow.